Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. So I'll jump in. Thanks, River. I really appreciate you having me today. What's happened with regards to us building DComply and how it happened was basically from my experience as a parent, really working through the challenges around working with my ex-wife around shared expenses. And I think my story is a little bit of a horror story, which kind of brought me to this place, in that it wound up costing me a lot of money in litigation, which was completely unnecessary. And one of the light bulbs that went on for me when I was going through the process, a friend of mine said to me, there's no reason why you should be in litigation over this, because everything's digital today. There should be a digital footprint of everything that's going on between you and your ex. And I said, oh my God, that is completely true. Why isn't that happening? And then I just thought I should just build it. So we started building DComply and creating that digital footprint and really trying to solve a difficult problem for parents. And I thought a really good place for us to start today would be to introduce Anna and have her share her story about how she found DComply and started to work with us. And yeah, let me just turn it over to Anna. And Anna, you could just share kind of where you're at. And I think that many of you on the phone will really relate to her story.
Thank you so much, Marco. And also, I actually want to take this opportunity to thank Marco and thank Gabrielle for creating platforms and tools to help people like me transition in such a difficult time in my life. So a little bit about me. I'll just jump into the critical part of the story, which is I met the one. I met the one. I fell madly in love. He proposed a year from the day we met. We married shortly after, and I was ready to build a life. And I guess I might have rushed into that too quickly because there were things that weren't discussed, and we found that we had a lot of difference of opinions on things. So communication continued to be a struggle for us throughout our whole marriage. And then, in addition to that, of course, life started happening. I was building my career. He was building his. I got pregnant 4 years into my marriage. And my little guy at 18 months was diagnosed with autism. And, I'll report that he's doing amazing now. But, I got into action immediately, and that took a lot of my time and effort, building a great, robust program for him. And, that again put a strain on my marriage. And, fast forward about a year and a half ago, and he asked me for a divorce. And I was not prepared. I was not prepared for that. But what can you do other than get into action? And my biggest fear was that how am I going to communicate with a man during a separation and a divorce when I can communicate with him on the best of terms? And I said to myself, and money, of course, was the number one argument that we always had. So I said to myself, gosh, if there was only one platform that would house all the information and everything was organized. And, I started looking and I happened upon DComply. I opened the app. It was a beautiful, elegant app. It was visually appealing to me. I started looking at the features that it had, and it housed receipts. It allowed me to categorize the type of expense. It allowed me to associate a percentage of reimbursement in a note section so that if I felt I needed to, I could justify the purchase, right? And before this, I wasn't getting any support on any kind of expenses from him other than, some things that we had agreed upon. But once we both downloaded the app and started using it, I started getting reimbursed. And, there were a few times where he challenged me on those reimbursements. And my response to him was just dispute it. If you're not comfortable, just dispute it. And you know what? He wouldn't end up disputing it. He'd end up paying it. So fast forward, this app has allowed me to formalize my relationship, take the energy away from that exchange with him. And as a result, I've been getting about $1,000 of reimbursements every month since I started using the app. So I can't say enough good things about it. And I hope that if you're in my position, you will take advantage of this great tool.
Thanks so much, Anne. I really, really appreciate that. I hope that was helpful for everybody. I'm going to jump in and just maybe explain a little bit more about what the problem is and give you some perspective on how DComply solves it. Then also, since we have Gabrielle on, we'll ask her some questions from a legal perspective to get to just get some greater or deeper perspective on what she sees in her day-to-day when she's working with clients. So why is this such a hard thing? The first thing is personal finance with an ex is a really emotional topic. It tends to be one of those lightning rods, and oftentimes it feels like money could be used as a weapon. So Gab, I'll start by asking you, do things escalate quickly on your side, or have you seen it happen on your side with your clients when we've gotten into money situations? And if you have, some like examples, maybe you could share, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, money, of course, other than kids, is the other thing that people fight about. And believe it or not, these small things can really blow up. I have had cases where, maybe child support is paid, but the wife finds dealing with the husband, just in this scenario, extremely difficult. And so, they let one thing go, they just pay it, they don't even ask. It's such a pain in the neck to get the reimbursement. And then one day they sit down and do the math at the end of the year, and they realize that they are thousands of dollars in debt. And guess what? They have spent thousands of dollars on add-on expenses. And what extracurricular and camp and the like are referred to in New York are add-ons that could be called something else depending upon where you live, if you're listening to this. And so what's so wonderful with DComply is that rather than having to go to the beginning with with a ledger and the battle of the spreadsheets, you have everything all together in one unified space, and it really just it stops the BS factor. I don't know what else to call it. It really helps keep people honest and accountable. Low grade conflict cases can really become high grade when one party feels that the other is being petty. So let's just say you are getting paid an amount that you think is like okay, but your ex thinks it's like too much or like more than he can afford or whatever his story is. And then you have the audacity to ask for more money, right? And that's where real problems start happening. And so if you can sort of nip the problem in the bud before it grows and splinters into something bigger, you're really going to do yourself a huge favor. I used to clerk for Judge Jeffrey Sunshine, who's the chief clerk, the chief administrative clerk for the whole state of New York matrimonial. And when I was with him, my job was primarily to help people reach a reasonable resolution who were about to go to trial, which means that they're in the most high conflict cases that there are, right? They've gone through everything and they're about to go to the trial, and they get sentenced to me to sort of close the case. And believe it or not, these co-parenting add-on expenses are sometimes the linchpin, the thing that makes the difference between resolution and not resolution. So it's hard because, we're complicated as human beings, and there's lots of things to fight about, and the system, as it were, which is very good, is not perfect, and it does not really foster an easy flow. It's kind of dinosaurish in the way that it tracks payments.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Gab. Typically, what we also see is that these are kind of low trust relationships, oftentimes with co-parents. It doesn't have to be, but sometimes it is. And if Gabrielle and I, for example, or if me and Anna went and we had lunch together and we're going to split it, I could pretty easily just send a Venmo and that's going to be resolved, and we're going to pay and we'll go on our way. Venmo solves kind of like the last mile payment problem, and it's an app I think most of us love. I think the challenge is with regards to co-parenting, it's just that it only solves that last mile, that payment. The actual documenting of the expenses, the categorization of it, the ability to actually have a dispute, none of that is really occurring there. The scanning of receipts, And all that's very important because, as Gabrielle noted, you're in a legal relationship with this other person. So having good reporting and being able to do that easily and quickly is great. And that leads you to the next topic. The way people are doing this today is typically using a bunch of different tools. So there's spreadsheets that people use, they're emailing each other, they're texting each other, they're making phone calls. Anna, maybe this is a good question for you. Prior to DComply, what did you try to do to get, I know you had trouble getting paid for anything, but what did you try to do before DComply?
Can't hear you.
Anna, I think you might be on mute.
Sorry, guys. It was an attempt at verbal communication that would lead absolutely nowhere. It would lead to him triggering me, I would trigger him, and it would blow up, and then we would hang up. So with nothing resolved. And, you know, that completely changed with DComply. I actually think DComply was the turning point for our relationship as how we communicate now in general. I've actually switched my communication with him from text to email. Again, because I've realized that the formalization of this process only supports both of us, right? We both kind of have to be on our best behavior when we know when we're tracking something, right? So, so it's really, really helped.
Yeah, hey, that's really helpful. Thank you. Gabrielle, from your perspective, from a legal perspective, what is the role of an attorney or a mediator in helping a parent track and collect reimbursement?
You know, that is such a funny and good question because the lawyer really doesn't have a role in that, right? I mean, the lawyer just tells you what to do and you have to figure out how to do it. Like, so you'll have a separation agreement and it will say 30 days you bring in the kid to the doctor, you pay, you have 30 days to notify the other party that they have to pay you back, and then they have 30 days to reimburse you. That's like really standard basic language in a, 9 out of 10 agreements. And that's that. And then the lawyer goes on their merry way. It's up to you, the end user, to figure out, a tracking system. Did I give him the receipt? Where do I put the receipt? Do I use a shoebox? Do I scan it onto a computer? The lawyer only gets involved where you say, hey, I'm not getting reimbursed. And they say, oh, no problem. Just show me your proof and we'll file. So if you don't have your stuff organized, that is not your lawyer's job. You may hire a bookkeeper, but I think that is definitely in this day and age not necessary and not the most favored way to track your expenses. And to your point, Marco, Venmo is great for like a quick one-off, if you have a really easy relationship and you have no shared expenses, but that describes maybe 2% of the population. Most people have a lot of money going back and forth, and really better safe than sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last point is, we know that and Anna brought this up earlier, is a lot of parents don't agree on money issues, and co-parents have even a more difficult time agreeing on money issues. And there's some real legitimate stuff to argue over. Like, for example, what is your philosophy on in-state versus out-of-state tuition? This $1,200 pair of designer eyeglasses is one that I came across with my ex. We got into it over that. Quite frankly, I didn't understand why eyeglasses were so expensive at the time. So these are the kind of things that really can get in the way. And the trouble is that parents can get stuck, right? And when they get stuck on one thing, if they get stuck on one issue, that could hold them up from really being able to move forward on several other things. And the idea with DComply is to take those expenses where you get stuck, kind of take them, put them on a shelf, on a dispute shelf, and then move forward with everything else so that you can continue to move forward. So I'll just keep going here. Some of this stuff is really obvious. I mean, it's really important to resolve because I think that we all want to keep our kids out of it, but it's really hard for parents for this not to spill over into the parent-child relationship, and for people to somehow make comments about the other parent when it comes to money. And you may think that your kids aren't feeling it, but they do. They understand, they can appreciate, and they feel the angst that might exist between you. So trying to solve this is really important, and the kids are the most important thing. Going back to court, I mean, Gab, you probably have some pretty egregious examples of people spending a ton of money. Maybe you could just share what that's like. I think it's really, I think this is important for people to understand because, this is like a big, it's a big potential hole in your financial plan if you do wind up going back to court because it can be so expensive. Go ahead, Gab, sorry.
Okay, sorry. So the thing is, you can take your ex back to court over and over and over for these smaller issues. So if you think like, oh, I don't need an app, I don't want to spend, I don't even know what the app is, but it's way less than an hour of my time. I'm sure of that for the whole year, right? And like, you go to court, then you don't have all of the documents. You have to go back to court again, and then I can't tell you, countless clients actually have said to me over the years things like, can he keep bringing me back to court, or can she do this again? And the answer is yes. They can keep bringing you back because we have due process. We have the right to keep filing. But the problem with continuing to use the court as a way to solve these day-to-day problems is you are really just padding the lawyer's pockets. You are losing time from your own job. You're losing time from your own mental health. Like, I personally am very committed to doing mediation. I do really complicated, high-end, high-conflict mediation, and I always tell people to use DComply for paying their payments between each other because it just makes sense. It's just like, life is complicated enough. Add divorce, add children, add businesses or property or debts, and now add in co-payments. Like, it just, I mean, I don't mean to sound like an infomercial, but it's just like it's such a simple remedy. And I can see from my experience that it is definitely incredibly helpful, makes everything easier.
Yeah, thank you. And this next comment, learned helplessness, this is one that I experienced when I created DComply. When I created DComply and I started talking to a lot of moms out there, I expected them to jump all over this. But one of the things that I found was one of the concerns that they had was they'd already been paying for everything for so many years. So you know what? I don't even want to talk to them. Like, I don't want to try anything else because I'm so tired of having the communication issues go on, and they just continue to shoulder that burden, that financial burden. And that financial burden maybe is happening in $20 to $30 co-payments, but when you add them up over time, those are thousands of dollars that could have been used for your children or for your own retirement or for other savings that you have. And it's money that, is potentially just owed to you that's not being taken advantage of. Anna, maybe you can comment on this also. Did you feel like was there a point where you felt like just giving up on the financial issues with your ex when you were going through it?
Well, I thought I was going to really be traveling this uphill battle financially for all of Mikey's growth. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to provide for him the way I would have liked to, because I, on a head of household income, I am head of household now, right? It's not dual income. So I was concerned because I was going to be robbing my child of opportunities, right? And the thing I actually want to go back to, Marco, that you mentioned is you said this is an opportunity to put that expense on a shelf and let it sit there. And I will, tell you, I'll fill you in on a little secret. Every time I send a reimbursement, request, I have no expectation. I hope he will pay it, but these are expenses I was going to make anyway. So I am pleasantly surprised that he is paying 99.9% of his expenses, right? Because they're valid. So what this is allowing me to do is provide for my son in a way that I want to.
Great, thank you. And the last point here about the ongoing headache, I mean, as per Gabrielle's comments earlier, the way your legal agreement might be structured is you might have, 30 days to submit a receipt, and then you've got to track the payment. You've got to track all of the receipts. You've got to track the payments against those receipts. I mean, who has got time for that? That's just a real pain in the neck. And I think because people are so busy in their lives, they just don't get around to doing it. Gabby, looks like you have a comment.
Yeah, people are so disorganized. Like they think they did it because they like wrote it down, but maybe they didn't save the receipt. And they're like, oh, I could just call the doctor and get the receipt. But it's not like that because time, to your point, people get busy. But, if there are ways to make things more clear, if you have to think in terms of evidence. And I hate to say that as a family attorney and as a mediator, but the fact is that if something's in dispute, if you have clear and unequivocal evidence, you're going to be in a great position. There's so much gray, there's so much that can always be debated, that the more you have the documents, the actual underlying documents, the more that you're giving the judge something to hang his or her hat on, and the more clear your case is going to be. And that applies whether you're in court, whether you work things out between each other, or whether you go to mediation, because, the proof, the actual invoice is what is going to speak. So make sure that your underlying agreement is clear and says who pays what, right? If that's not clear, well, then you have a whole other list of problems. And then once you have that clear, unequivocal agreement or court order, then you make the payments through DComply. You're going to have everything all in one space. You can go back, grab what you need, and you'll look very organized. And quite frankly, the more organized you look, the better your case is going to be perceived, and the more favorable your outcome is going to be at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the number one goal here for all of us is to not go to court, right? So the idea with DComply is to create a system that kind of it almost polices itself, right? I mean, it's fairly obvious who has done what, right? Who has paid what bills, and how long they've been outstanding, what's been disputed, what's not been disputed. By making it, 100% transparent, I think it becomes a harder argument to make that they have or haven't been paid. So anyway, we're kind of coming up against time, so I'm going to start moving a little bit faster, and let's start talking about what the solution looks like. So the first thing that you could do in DComply is send a bill to a co-parent. And the way this is designed to be used on the go. DComply is a 100% mobile solution. So the idea is if you go to a doctor's appointment, if you have an expense that pops up, you can immediately just take a picture of the receipt, or you could go into your photo library and grab it. And there's also a place where there's a library in DComply for scanned receipts. You can go to those items, you can pull that receipt up, you can attach it to a bill, you can describe the bill, and then there's a slide bar to help you kind of portion out, to help you adjust what portion of that expense really needs to go to your co-parent, and then it shows you that requested amount. Hit the send button, and it's off. That bill is then sent to your co-parent. They get an email of the bill, and they also get a notification in the app. So they'll immediately know that this is out there, and this is something that they're obligated to take care of. The next thing is that once you send the bill, everything gets tracked in kind of one place. There's this page in the app called the balance summary. And in the balance summary, basically what you do is you have an outline of the bills that have been sent by you, and then you also have an outline of the bills that are owed, and it shows you what that balance is. Then you could also dig into each one of the bills, and you could look at the receipt that's associated with it. You can also see how many days it's gone unpaid. You could withdraw the bill, and you can even mark the bill paid offline. So if someone made a payment, if they used Venmo or some other way to make the payment, you can then mark the bill paid, and it'll show in this balance summary, and it'll be a completed transaction after that. With DComply, you'll actually make payments or receive money directly into your bank account. So the way DComply works is that we have a banking partner that basically creates ACH transfers or wire transfers between banks. And your account would be set up so that you're directly connected to your co-parent. So for example, that there's the bill here. When you press that bank account button, basically what's happening is I'm triggering or initiating a request to send money for this reimbursement, for this particular example here, an eye exam, to send that money directly into my co-parent's bank account. And the same can be said with child support. With child support, there's also the ability to track exactly what is owed, how much has been paid, and then also make the payment. And in addition to that, there's also an auto pay feature where your co-parent could set up the ability to actually pay automatically, so they don't even have to open the app. It just automatically sends the payment every single month, and everything is tracked in the app. So you can open up the app and see exactly where you are against child support. So here's the kind of the main page of the app. This is the primary page of it. And you can see that you've got the ability to send bills, pay bills, manage your child support, scan receipts, send multiple bills. You could send a repeat bill. So if you've got something that you're billing every month, maybe that's a soccer camp or a team, or maybe that's a music lessons that you're doing every month. You could send a bill for that. You have your balance summary. This export transactions button, that's a place where you can go press that button and basically it'll send a PDF report, your parenting report, and you can set the dates and exactly what kind of transactions you want to have in that report. And that report has a transaction ID associated with every single bill that's been sent and everything that's been paid, so that again there is zero argument here about what has happened or what hasn't happened in that financial relationship. So to Gabrielle's point, really trying to remove all of the gray areas. And then there's also this spot for disputes. So again, if there is a bill that comes up where there is a disagreement, we can then take that and we have a dispute engine to try to help the parent resolve the dispute by kind of going back and providing additional information. But if it can't be resolved, they can then document that dispute, and that dispute will come out in the exported transactions or in the report. So that information is available so that can be solved for at a later point. And that's in essence all we have with regards to kind of explaining what the app does and how it could help. If there are any questions, if someone wants to put them in the chat box, we'll be happy to answer them. And I think as a next step, I would encourage you to check out DComply.com. That's our website for more information. Or if you're interested in downloading the app, you could simply just go to Google Play or to the App Store and punch in DComply, and you'll find us. And last thing, if you have any questions for me that you want to ask, you could reach out to me directly. I'm just Marco at DComply, MARCO at DComply.com, and you'll be able to track me down and ask any questions. So Gab, Anna, before we go, do you have any parting thoughts that you want to, or wisdom you want to leave with the group?
I mean, I just can't stress enough how important it is to take control of your financial wellness in your divorce, in your life from the beginning. Don't wait till there's a problem to try to solve the problem, but live with the solution starting now. And if anyone's looking for mediation, I'm at GabrielleHartley.com.
Awesome.
And I will say just this will take care of your mental health.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're using DComply, chances are you're rebuilding a new life. And this doesn't need to weigh you down. Put it on a shelf and keep moving forward, and use DComply.
Great. I want to thank you, Marco, Anna, and Gabrielle for a great presentation, and we can open it up to Q&A now. I see we have some questions that have come in, and I'll remind everyone, if you have a question, you can use the chat box or you can email info@savvyladies.org. And the first question for you is asking about the app and the costs associated with it. Is it a free app or are there paid features for it?
Yes, so there are various ways to use the app. So the app comes with a free trial. So the trial basically means the first 7 transactions or 7 bills that you put into the app are absolutely, they come at no cost, no strings attached. And we don't ask for a credit card or anything like that to start the trial. And the reason why we don't is we respect that you guys are all co-parents and we're all in this together. And we're looking to make this as easy as possible for people and low risk as possible. With regards to once you've gone through your 7th and you're in your 8th bill, if you're using DComply Pay, if you're using our platform to make the actual payments, the app is $5.99 a month. So it's, like I said, $5.99 per month, and it's cancelable at any time. So again, very light risk. If you're not using the app for making payments and you're just using it as an expense tracker, so we see a lot of moms who are struggling with getting their exes to download the app. So what they do is they actually use the app themselves to track all their expenses, and then they create the report, and they're in a position then, if they ever wanted to litigate, they could. I have one mom in New Jersey that collected about $60,000 in expenses that weren't getting paid. She used DComply to document everything, and now she's working with an attorney to get reimbursed for those. But that's a case study in how she used the app just as an expense tracker to help her really kind of organize herself, so she was able to go and do that. And to use that feature, that's $2.99 a month just to use the kind of the basic DComply feature. So if you go to our website and you go to pricing, all this information will be reiterated and it will be there for you. And the last thing is, if you are a parent that is just making payments in DComply, the app's free. So let's say, for example, you wanted to set this up with your co-parent. Your co-parent said, well, I don't want to pay for an app to do that. You'll say, well, you don't have to, because if you're just making payments, the app is absolutely free to use. So there's no excuses.
Okay, great. Thank you for explaining that. We have another question that is asking if both parents need to have iPhones to use this, or can you have an Android? And if your ex isn't really great with a phone, is it something you can use on a laptop, or is it just a phone app?
It's just a phone app. So that was intentional. We wanted to make this a really easy to use experience. And what we saw in the marketplace was that there are other companies that are trying to build applications, but they're really web apps, and they move them onto the phone, and they're really ugly and hard to use. The idea with DComply is to make it so simple that anyone could use it on a phone app, to make it, really kind of see, spot, run type simple, Venmo type of simple with regards to making these exchanges. And it doesn't matter if you're on an iPhone or on Android, it's available on both. And if your co-parents are on different systems, it doesn't matter either, because the back end of our platform works either way. So if he's on an Android and you're on an iPhone, all good, doesn't matter, you're going to be fine. DComply will work fine for you. Last thing is, if you want to, whoever asked that question, if you're having challenges getting set up, just feel free to just send me a note at marco@DComply. I'd be happy to help whichever co-parent who's not very good at technology get themselves set up. So I've done that for many, many parents. Happy to do that and offer that up as well.
Okay. Thank you,
Can I just
Marco.
make one comment? That
Yes.
one thing that I love so much is, Marco is not just like a business guy who created this. He's like a dad who struggled with it and then has spent his entire career in tech. So like he just has the reason I chose to be an advisor to DComply is because he's someone who I felt like I could really trust was going to build a really strong, useful backend. And during the growth stages, when there were a little glitch or something, he would be like, okay, and he would like totally put his money where his mouth was and revamp it and elevate it and make it that much better. So I'm just like so excited about DComply and about watching where Marco takes his product for all of you. Sorry to derail the questions. I just had to say that as I'm listening to him
Thanks,
talk.
Gab. Very
Thank
nice
you.
of you.
Appreciate it.
I'm saying it. I mean,
All right, it looks like we have one more question for you, and that is asking about a record of disputed or even unpaid charges. Is this something that can be used to show to a lawyer?
Yes, that's why we built it. I mean, it's also why I called it DComply. The idea is it's divorce comply. And it's to create this technology that basically would have a record of all of those things. The key is it's just like any other technology, in that what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So if you're making sure that you're putting all of your bills into DComply, DComply will tell you which ones were paid, which ones weren't paid, which ones are disputed. And this is just facts. These aren't alternative facts. These aren't different views. It is what happened. So if everyone's committed to using the system and making sure that they're documenting everything appropriately, yes, you will know exactly what bills were unpaid. You'll know exactly how long they've gone unpaid, and you'll know exactly what was disputed, and you'll know how long those disputes have gone on, and you'll have reasons for why those items were disputed. And all of that could be handed to an attorney. You can just simply take the report that you've downloaded and email it to your attorney, and have those conversations. And it's been really useful for the people who have done it. Mm-hmm. There's also, by the way, there's a sample report on my website, so you can actually see what reportings are like. So if you go to the DComply website, I believe at the bottom of the website there is a place for legal agreements and sample reports. And that's a place where you can get a perspective on what some of the reporting looks like.
Mm-hmm. All right, and we can put that link in our follow-up email as well, so we'll make sure everyone has access to that. So I want to thank you, Gabrielle, Anna, and Marco, for presenting today and talking more about this and all the useful information that comes with it. Thank you to everyone for joining us today and asking questions. As I said, we'll be sending a follow-up email, and thank you again so much.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.